without further ado, I think he's ready to rock and roll. Please welcome our first guest speaker here today, Mr. Miles Johnston.
Okay, my name is Miles. I'm part of the MASH project. We didn't want to call it mind control because that's too scary. So it's scary enough. So we'll get on with things. Let's see if this, you know PowerPoint presentations, they never go wrong. We'll see if we even got the right folder. Right. Essentially the first caption there was basically I'm the producer, researcher, Irish UFO Research Centre. That's evolved into television. And so I've been doing a thing called the Basis series. We'll turn our mobile phone off. The Basis series is fundamentally about detailed, very long form, almost completely unedited interviews with researchers and people who often you'll never see of or hear of again. And on some cases, people have literally died 2 or 3 weeks after I've interviewed them. No worries, don't panic. One of these I'm going to feature on this because his story is coming back today and it involves the Nazis. There's a constant running theme in this, the Nazis. So let's get on with this. Okay, Britain's Milab bases. It turns out that Britain, Timothy Good essentially has written this wonderful series of books, and basically there are underground bases all over the world, but there's none here. That's not quite the case, it seems. Now I'm going to paraphrase all of this was either the term allegedly or it is claimed. Because until we actually have programmable generated life forms, which is a phrase you need to understand, programmable generated life forms, man-made, biologically controllable entities, until we actually have one on stage and we have a couple of greys and a few other things, we can't actually definitely say this is what it is. So what we're doing is we're sort of putting blocks into a very large pastiche of, or a sort of a frame, and we can't make any initial conclusions. So that's why the evidence is out there. You can have a look at it, but don't draw any conclusions. It's very, very unwise to draw conclusions or conjecture on not enough information. And the project really is to get the information out there so you can discuss it and talk about it, and you can say, look, that's what this guy said, and then you can reference that. And that's primarily what the Basis series is. And the Basis series, Joanne Summerscales asked me to come on board, and we created the MASH project, but we'll get on with that. Right, the first Basis stuff, which I'll just sort of paraphrase and get on with, was with Barry King. He's a researcher in London. He came up with some outrageous stories. The problem about these stories about underground bases in Berkshire and a base at Peasmore was that, okay, Barry King's saying this, but then this other girl came along called Lisa, and Lisa confirmed the whole thing. So I recorded that, and we put that together way back in 1994, 1995. So we have basically 2 people coming up with basically the same bit of information. And the information is that since World War II, going in during the war, the scientists came to England and they started making man-made, programmable, generated alien life forms. Okay? Okay, so this also involves mind control, and that's where there's no evidence, so we go to allege on all this. And that's Barry King there. Peasmore base involving brainwashing, genetic engineering, genetic experimentation, basically social engineering. This is the original whistleblower. You can see that as Basis 1, which I re-released in 2010 with a re-edit. And the term here is an underground alien facility in England, and it's designated, its name is AL499. Many years later, another guy comes on the scene. His name's called James Casbolt. That's Lisa. Lisa published a book. She's met many greys, lots of stuff even at work. She keeps switching. Again, we're introducing the connection here with the US Air Force. A lot of these people have got connections with the military or the United States Air Force. Time and time and time again. Her son would be abducted, or these alien people, or as the son called it, the aeroplane men would come into the house. So speeding on, we then have a connection with Larry Warren. I remember Larry put on a great show here 2 or 3 years ago. Larry Warren was the first person to really keep the Rendlesham Forest UFO thing pot boiling. Subsequently, other people have come up. It's a complicated story, but there's a connection here with Lisa, and there's a connection here with another researcher which I interviewed in Basis 2, which I'll get onto in a few seconds. So essentially, Larry kept things going. There's a complicated story there, but that's available on Basis 2. That's Larry there. Now, the point about that is that we have another researcher coming up on the scene in the current realm called Sasha Christie, and we'll talk about that later on. So we did that on Basis 2, that, as we've mentioned. Now, this is where we're getting onto this character called Ron Adams. Now, the Adams family was given full access, as it turns out, we now find out, was given full access to the Rendlesham Forest, to the Bentwaters base, right? The problem was, as I mentioned in my introduction, after the interview I did with Ron, he was dead. The Greys came to him every night, terrified as much, and he was dead. Now, he has close links with Lisa Williams, who we'll get onto, and as I've mentioned, his family was given full access socially, just carte blanche, go anywhere except the nuclear weapons bunkers and the Bentwaters base. The thing about this is that the entire Adams family started having nightmares about spiders, big ones. Now, David Moncur, who's a great researcher, I don't know if anybody knows David Moncur. He's from Scotland. He's been on the scene, behind the scenes for a long time. Now, somebody took a pot shot at David, and he's got a bullet lodged right beside his jugular. It was just from an air rifle. It's enough just to get in there. They can't operate because the bullet removal of the bullet could rupture his jugular vein. This is after David spoke about the Nazis, the connection with Ron Adams and the Greys at Bentwaters, and the spider problem, because he's been investigating Ron Adams. So we have a UFO researcher, long-term UFO researcher, on the scene in the background. Now, the police said it was actually an attempted assassination. The problem is that the bullet's still there, it's lead, and I'm very worried about David. Now, that section updating Lisa with the Nazis and a phenomenon called soul splicing, right? We've got to really start thinking way seriously outside of the box. The human being, the human soul, human beings being manufactured, what you put into the programmable life forms, how you control programmably generated manufactured life forms and false DNA. It now turns out that it looks like Barry King's father, who was British military intelligence during World War II, first encountered extraterrestrial biological entities in the concentration camps, while the British progressively took over these camps during the end of World War II. So there is a really strong connection here with genetics, programmable life forms, the soul level, human reprogramming level of the actual human essence of what you are, switching bodies, trying to continue this on through the future, i.e. now, and that's sort of indicated in Basis 9. Basis 9 essentially is all about... okay, this is David Moncur.
Very long before he died, actually.
So what happened about the story about Ron?
What about the earring? His earring he's wearing is a skull with a little snake. A skull on the top of a snake. Most interesting, odd symbol, you know, for an earring.
In what respect?
Well, definitely sort of occult leanings or whatever. Esoteric, for want of a better word.
You're not there.
It's very interesting, wasn't it? Yeah.
I didn't really believe that he was in as much risk as he felt he was. But I didn't know about the Bentwaters thing.
The Adams family is a family I met around about 1994, and they were the only civilian family to have lived in US Air Force Bentwaters from 1970 to 1976. They were surrounded by military personnel and were very friendly with all of the military personnel. They would go on all the dances, go to all the Christmas parties, birthday parties of children, all the see the New Year in, you know. So from 1970 to 1976, they left in 1976, and Ron started running a bookshop in Highbury in London. But I would think that the most important thing about the whole family is that Ron, his wife, his two sons, and a daughter-in-law all believed that while during any stay at US Air Force Bentwaters, they were abducted by aliens. The whole family, the whole lot. I talked to the wife, I talked to Ron the father, I talked to one of the sons, and the son indeed, whose name I can't remember, was very traumatized and had an instantaneous terror of spiders. I think it was the younger of the two sons. He was the only one that I met when I was at Ron's in Chase Road in 1984, but he was very traumatized looking. In my opinion, he had a sudden fear of spiders, as I said, after abduction, which is like another abductee in Edinburgh that I've met. Saw a UFO in the sky, all of a sudden whole life he's had an absolute terror of spiders. So to get on to the family living away from US Air Force Bentwaters from 1976 to 1980, they carried on their connection with US Air Force Bentwaters personnel socially, so they carried on going to all the birthday parties and all that. I would say it's also interesting that the daughter-in-law, to obviously betrothed to one of Ron Adams' sons, coming from a completely different family, also stated that she thought she'd had incredible experiences whilst staying overnight in US Air Force Bentwaters. She believed that aliens had come through the walls and ran round her bed. And that was very similar to what Ron Adams' wife was talking about, whom I did speak to personally. But I don't really see why two completely separate families should be wanting to claim the same thing, which is utterly fantastic to us then, you know, right now, even in 2010.
Right. We got some pictures, right? Okay, now the important thing about this is, paraphrasing the pirate radio stations, first of all, any government that opposed those radio stations in Ireland, gone. Anybody noticed any patterns on any government in this country that tried to shut down Radio Caroline? Gone. John Stonehouse, Harold Wilson, Edward Heath, Mrs. Thatcher, they all did that. Shh, don't do that, okay? The point about this is there are very, very few people who've been at the leading edge of the actual transmitter chain and the actual production, and I'm one of them. There's two or three others which we won't go into. But this is where the phenomena of the spider thing starts coming in. This is where we get scary, okay? The equipment that we had on the transmission systems that we had in Ireland, and I'm called Megawatts 1066. One very good reason for that is I'm the only person who's transmitted 1 million watts of power from a pirate radio signal into Northern Ireland, not once but twice. The second time we had an alien abduction. We'll go into that later on, we just speed on, but the point about it is the equipment was being attacked by black, intelligent, fluidic energy life forms. Almost everything we got out of the BBC and the existing broadcast chain was covered in this stuff. Right? There's an unusually strong reason in this country why pirate radio is a bad thing. We've got to shut it down. Overreaction, big mistake. For instance, if you wanted to start up a radio ship in Liverpool Bay, and there was a drugs shipment or an arms ship there, they would go past the drug shipment, they would go past the armament shipment, that go to the pirate radio boat. Why? Big problem. So the point about this is we discovered life forms which are about the size of your hand crawling around inside the transmission system. If you observed it with your eyes, this is important about the whole matrix reality construct, it deleted itself from your cognition. Okay? These scuttler things, because I only discovered the name of it some years afterwards, are man-made, using man-made technology in association with some other non-human technology. They go after information-based systems, and they attack computer systems, computer networks, electrical power distribution systems. The electrical power distribution system itself is an intelligent network. It's a neural net. And the reason why Ron Adams was scared, his family was scared of spiders, is because these things are going to be bigger than me. And that's really scary. I mean me, not the spiders. But this is important because encountering these things at Rendlesham Forest at the Bentwaters base and being scared of these things, black shadow entities like a fuzzy black thing, they're just shifted out of the reality domain that we exist in. And the connection with that is it's all in the equations, it's in the mathematics, it's in the weapon systems they're employing today and have been for many years. Right, we'll get on with things. Right, again, this phenomena of children being taken from their families and mind control is echoed. This is another person I interviewed called Nikki. She's a mind control victim. The same kind of programs Barry King talks about, involves adopted children, and believe it, and just in the papers in the last couple of days, they've been saying our children are under-medicated. Their health care is at risk. We need to medicate them better, more drugs into them. Much bigger budget in this. So the point about this is the programming of children using trauma-induced mind control. That is basically raping them, exposing them to most horrendous pain so that the mind shifts into a rescue state, so that the mind goes away from the pain, creates a completely different personality, and then bingo, they program that. So this gets programmed into multiple personalities, right? Self-determination commands, all sorts of things like this. That's where the anomalous mind control thing that we were talking about comes in. Right. James Casbolt then came along. Anybody here know who James Casbolt is? Anybody know who Michael Prince is? Right. Basically, James Casbolt comes along about 10 years later talking about the same thing that Barry King's talking about. He then puts on various websites full of X-Files pictures, which are clearly pictures from the X-Files. The point about it is that the material that Barry King published and I helped print it is called The Voice. That effectively is the script for the X-Files TV series, okay? Basically, it's in two-inch ring files. It's available on basis everything that's on that is available on one of the discs for looking at on a computer for researchers. So this guy called James Casbolt comes along, says all the same things that Barry King's talked about. So I've got a problem. Has James Casbolt actually seen the videotape of Bases? Because I had Bases actually published and distributed, and some of my friends actually bought it. It's on VHS. You could buy it in Germany, but I couldn't buy a copy. So had James Casbolt watched my videotape that I'd made, and has he basically been a bit of a nutter, gone off his trolley, and was simply repeating the stuff that I found out way back in 1995. So I interviewed James, and I've got the first interview up there, which was meant to be an initial interview. It was a very rough interview. So it wasn't for like 5 years that I was able to re-interview him again. And the whole point about it is, we're now bringing in the super soldiers and clones. Again, this is still on the programmable generated life form theme. If you're going to create an artificial life form in a humanoid form, you've got to have control of it. According to Barry King, these generated life forms are used in the military abductions. So these things come into your bedroom, you get abducted, you think you've been taken by aliens, but you've been really taken by the military. That's basically it. They have round eyes, not the big almond eyes. They have the ability to, once they're animated, they breed them up in about 3 months. This connects with the Dulce base as well, okay, in America. Anybody heard of Dulce? Right, there's some people, there's some books out saying it's all rubbish. Again, this whole subject is very easy to sort of just shelve. Oh, it's all a CIA plot. Oh, it's all disinformation. So we just take it on board, but don't make any decisions. So the point is, we've got our own Dulcie base in various bases here, allegedly some of them in Wales and Brecon Beacons, the Berkshire bases near where the crop circles are. Greenham Common was one of the mind control bases. So we have a connection here with super soldiers. James Casbolt is connecting the modern SS. Anybody seen a film called Dark Sky? It's Iron Sky? You're a bloody anorak. Anybody else? Iron Skies? Great film, right? Iron Sky is a spoof comedy about German flying saucers on the bloody moon. I tried doing a David Icke impression, doesn't work. The point about this is comedy, you know, what's really going on? Okay, so we got the use of time and reality fracturing. This is a creation of multiple reality events. And again, we've got to connect with the Montauk Project here. Who's heard of the Montauk Project? All anoraks keep their hands down. Okay, the Montauk Project is on New York Point. It's the point of New York Island. It's way up in the north, and there's a fairly good program about that involving Preston Nichols, and one of the researchers in that is in fact dealing with Lisa about the Nazi control of reality using non-Einsteinian physics. In essence, we didn't win the war, we lost it. The Nazis took over. The Americans got the rocket scientists, Britain got the mind-controlled medical people, okay? The stuff dropped on Japan was German. Who lost the empire? Britain. Who lost all contact with the oil? Britain. The British Empire collapsed. Our special relationship with the United States, okay? We lost the war and the Germans didn't. Okay, so we have both fake alien, we have a fake alien and a real alien situation. This is James Casbolt. Hopefully this will run. Oh, stopped it again.
In part 3, Michael Prince claimed the Looking Glass project was a piece of hardware involving mercury. It allowed operators to open portals into different timelines.
James Casbolt is now saying his real name is Michael Prince.
Project from World War II. He describes his life as James Casbolt, with his carer, Kate Casbolt. This gave a background to life as James and his stepfather, who died in prison in 2003. The MI6 connection is further enhanced. A complex, sickening family arrangement involving child abuse, satanic rituals is familiar territory in this dark tale of mind control, the Nazi SS in a modern age, and an alien human war. While a young child in 1982, his service on an active mission in Penang, Malaysia is described. The pursuit of a humanoid bipedal wolf-type alien is described.
What do you want to get across this time?
I'd just like to mention 2 points quickly. After that, I was transferred to a facility in South America, in Manaus, in Brazil. This was actually a facility in the Andes Mountains, big underground city. And that was another NSA facility, codenamed Plume. And George Bush Sr. was there again.
Was that when he was president?
This was,
or as vice president?
This was 83, 84, mid-80s.
Yeah, work it out.
And yeah, Manaus, Brazil, facility codenamed Plume, and in the Andes Mountains.
Right, I'm going to get on with this. The important thing is anybody who knows about Project Monarch. Who knows about Project Monarch? Anoraks, keep your hands down. Monarch mind control. Right, there's a book by Kathy, featuring a lady called Kathy O'Brien. It's called Transformation of America. You can only order online. This involves trauma-induced mind control, the creation of human beings as information carriers for secret missions. The Manchurian Candidate, has anybody seen the original Manchurian Candidate film? Right, there's a film called The Manchurian Candidate featuring Frank Sinatra. It's around about the 1960s. Maybe the late 1950s. It's about how an assassin is programmed, perfectly nice guy, English of course, all the bad guys in English in films, and they are there to execute a programmed set of commands to assassinate and terminate. That's what happened with the death on the tube. That's why when The guy Menendez was shot on the tube. They had to blow his brains out. That was a dead giveaway that he was a Manchurian, but they got the wrong guy. That was a dead giveaway that the police knew that they had programmed Manchurian candidate assassins running around the tube to blow things up. With a Manchurian candidate, the brain stem is permanently active. Even when most people are shot, a Manchurian candidate will sustain and maintain fire on the target. The only way to sever that is to shoot the bloody brains out. That's why the police stood over and blew the bloody brains out in public, because they knew that that guy had to be shut down. The only way you can shut a Manchurian candidate down is total destruction of the brain. 7 shots in the head. Right? That means the whole 7-7 thing is an inside job run by mind control people. Right? We are being completely screwed here, right?
And that was a Nazi training facility. That we were trained in a huge hall there. And there were groups of children divided into 15,
I don't think
20
there's a fast
there.
forward button on this, but... What James Casbolt is describing there is a Chewie. Star Wars, again, in the Star Wars things, you're being shown things and they're laughing at you guys. Chewie's a sort of like a fur-covered alien. Now, the thing about James is that at the International UFO Conference this year, James said he's joined the military, right? The problem about James is there's a clone. There's not one, allegedly seems to be more than one of James, right? So James gave this picture to me of him swearing he's joining the US military. Bullshit. Staged. He may very well be part of the US military, but there's quite a large number of British researchers getting pretty well clean, straight access into the United States. This is him claiming to swear that he's now joining the US military in December, just before his 34th birthday. So he's an old man, but he put on a huge amount of weight, 220 kilos. Yeah, that's him beefing up. I'm a super soldier, look at me. Now the point about this is, if James Casbolt's story doesn't ring true for you and you think it's a load of crap, that's because it isn't meant for you. Like all advertising, like all targeted information from the government, if you think it's crap, they don't care. They don't want to communicate with you. They're communicating with somebody else. Now this picture set off a number of other people that we've interviewed for the Image project, and these are called triggers. They're designed to set people off with pre-programmed responses. So speeding on, because I realize we're overrunning, there's a 150-page document going back to about 1740, and before that was actually released. This is available on YouTube. You can watch it, you can see it, but nobody has had a damn chance knowing what the hell this says. This includes at least 3 different alphabets. It's a type of cipher. James Casbolt is saying, or Michael Prince is saying, Miles, I've given you this information, you're the first to have it. This is a highly encrypted document. This is parchment. The lines are too straight, okay? Some of the script is too modern for the alleged era, but the point about this is allegedly stating that the Bavarian Illuminati did a deal with reptilian genetic engineers in Uppsala in Sweden in 1740, okay? An awful lot of things happened in the 1700s, in the late 1600s. 1690, anybody heard of that? Ulster says no. Ulster says no. Well, that's because the River Boyne is symbolizing the universe. Aliens came across the universe to Earth, instigated a bipolar conflict situation in Ireland, switched on a reality matrix in Ireland, so they're all screaming and yelling at each other, so they wouldn't find out what's really going on. Basically, Ireland is this place where civilization came from and repopulated to civilize the earth, meeting up with the people who emerged from Egypt. Big story. Anyway, I'm diverting. So the point about this is, according to James Casbolt at MI6, who basically decoded it and were telling us this now, what this says is that the Bavarian Illuminati met reptilian genetic engineers, and this section deals with modification of the eye. Right? So this is a coded cipher sent to me by blah blah. The cipher was discovered in a collection in Germany in the 1970s and sent to an heir in America who owned the estate of a former member of the Bavarian Illuminati. This document was donated to the Grand Masonic Lodge of Pennsylvania and then given to the Scottish Rite Masons in America. The Masons know all about the ET situation and the manipulation of genetics. Not everybody walking around is human. Not everybody is derived from original human stock, and there's a lot of humans walking about who've got different bits in them which are different to us, so-called the not we. We've got to not think about aliens. Aliens are up there. Alien refers to a three-dimensional universe. We are not in a three-dimensional universe. We are in a multi-dimensional universe. Don't look up, look right here. So when people with telescopes communicating with the stars, we're dealing with a multi-dimensional universe, so astronomers use a two-dimensional instrument to tell you about it. Bullshit. Right, we've talked about that, we'll move on. This is James with his lovely wife, Manchurian monarch presidential model. I'll ask you to look that up because then you'll know how terrible this really is. This is her fine mother donating her daughter under whatever pain of whatever. Look very civilized. This is them having dinner at Sotheby's. You'll notice James basically gives the same look no matter what photograph. You'll also notice they're very, very similar right out of the same test tube, maybe. Right, another guy interviewed is a guy who's a no-nonsense, no bullshit, don't talk to me, just sees right through the whole crap. His name is John Irwin. John Irwin is a soldier on national service, 1957-1959. He was recruited into a special elite British military force called the 16. This secret British military force worked completely secretly within the British military in 1957, fighting the Illuminati and the aliens and the New World Order. Who the hell knew about the New World Order in 1957? He did. He was trained while in a near-death experience. His first interview, I've left on YouTube, basically gets around the story, talks about how he was initially brought into it. His second interview, which I did recently, I think it's basis 10 or 11, now states that the British military officer that brought him into this elite was not really the same as most humans. It doesn't mean he's alien. It doesn't mean he's some kind of somebody from a planet elsewhere. It just means he's different. He wrote this book called One Step Beyond. It's called One Step Beyond Death. In other words, he's trained in the higher non-physical world to be a killer. He is a very good killer. That's what he does. He completely throws out the SAS, martial arts, total distraction. The head of the SAS has come to him. The head of the SAS failed all the initial steps, and John threw him out in a very nice way. The crucial thing about this is that in 1959, his last mission was his mission was to go in all across the Middle East. That was his theater of operation. And he was bumping people off very effectively. In fact, he did such a good job bumping one guy off in Cairo that when the Egyptian Secret Service read his book, they says, hey, how the hell did you do it? Come over here, we'll do it, right? So, speeding on. So this is part of the initial interview. We'll see if this plays. Again,
We first interviewed one of the British Army's elite super soldiers, John Irwin, in late 2010. Now, in Basis 13, we revisit John in his
well, I've basically said that, so we'll see if we can get on.
Where he reveals
okay, that's him with the British military. I'll play this anyway.
Into the 16 may not have been human.
those are top people from the
16
Egyptian
were
military and
also
secret
after
service.
ancient, possibly alien crystal energy weapons technology, some of which they recovered in Jarabah, described in part 2. With his dear wife ill in hospital, we give you John...
Right, that's... Okay, 1959, he's on the mission is to go into that base, wipe everybody out and recover special crystal artifacts, ancient crystal artifacts, which realign the interdimensional portals on the surface of the Earth with outer dimensional reality, right? The point is the Earth's surface moves around, changes, things go around, do what they're going to do. They recovered 2 crystal devices, placed in the right piece of equipment, you needed 6 of them. That device then realigned the misalignments of dimensional portals on the Earth. Again, because they recovered it, it meant that the so-called Illuminati couldn't do it. Let's see if we can get around it. I think we do this. Right, so these are the flying saucers. Just before they went in onto the base, 2 of these damn things took off from the Syrian desert. Okay? So, as I'll just speed on here. What happened was that I showed John some flying saucer pictures from the latest final known designs of German flying saucer technology in 1945. These devices are the size of football stadia, and they have got a very similar design to German flying saucer anti-gravity technology in 1945. Okay, I've used the wrong term. Anti-gravity is the wrong term. Okay, it's not anti-gravity. It's a spatial distortion thing. Let's speed on. So that's John describing that basic raid, where just as they went in, these damn things took off. The rest of the team says, forget about it, we're going in there. They wiped it out, got the crystals, got it. It's all on YouTube, right. Another character who turned up in this investigation is a guy called Matthew Todd. Now, Matthew is describing here how he was able to go out of body. Again, a lot of this thing involves going out of body. And he then went into an underground facility in an unnamed country where he was able to break out a mass of abductees who were in cages, right? He was pursued by a number of aliens or greys from this base, which he was able to kill. He shot 4 of them with their own equipment. He then subsequently describes and he demonstrates on his body implants which are on his back, which magnets stick to. If you get the kind of magnets which are in hard drives, they're made of they're silver and they're very, 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 very powerful. And by sticking one of these things, actually the magnet stuck to his flesh because of the implants. What happened was the alien later on in this episode fired at him, and he had 4 things on his lower thing which was designed to stop him gaining access to the base. Now the point about this is that he's taken by 2 beautiful women into the secret underground alien base. He turns his head, the 2 beautiful women, bingo, transform to greys. You've got to understand that these things don't actually shapeshift. Shape-shifting uses an awful lot of energy. It's difficult, probably painful. What they do is they get you to do it for them. So you in your mind see what is either a human being or an alien. And that's why you've got to look for the join, the change. There'll be a discontinuity. That's the only time you'll see it. Okay, so the point about this is this always brings in the US military. All the time, the military's involved. And as we know, or as we now understand, all the time the Nazis are in there somewhere else. Okay, Matt Todd has a relationship with Casbolt. There's a connection there. There's another super soldier, the first one I interviewed really, who said he was a super soldier. He physically would hulk out. His name was called Dave Marrow. And we detected some implants with him. Matt was able to actually physically detect RF radiation of a very high level coming out of the back of him. Now the trouble about these implants is they're not all little things like that. Some of them are about that long with legs, and they're semi-physical. They live in a sort of fluidic reality, fluidic space, halfway or slightly not with us. It's crawling around the bottom of his back. This is referring to off-planet weapon systems, and we're bringing on board now the off-planet weapon systems and the satellite systems. You're not allowed to look at the remote, we're not allowed to remote view satellites which are transmitting to us. You're not allowed to remote view the moon. And anybody here who thinks they landed on the moon with Apollo? Anna, actually, you can put your hand up. So nobody in this room thinks we landed with the Apollo missions. Okay? Very good clip about that, where they have a cutout stuck on the window with the Earth as a half crescent. They zoomed out, you can see the bit they stuck on the window. Right. So we've got a problem with lunar bases and Mars bases. Anybody heard of Alternative 3? Alternative 3 is a fictional documentary made by Anglia Television in 1977, I think actually over a year. They shot it over a year. It's about the Earth under threat. Everything's going to come to an end. Oh my God, we've got to create bases. Alternative 1, secret underground bases on Earth. Anybody heard of the Norwegian gene bank base in Norway? Okay, the Norwegians have a very, very deep base, lots of genetic material kept there. You've got to be 90 meters down if the solar flares hit. You must be a minimum of 90 meters down underground. Otherwise, when the solar flares hit, your memory goes. You are literally blanked. So all your DVDs of Ray Mears on how to survive, you won't know. You won't have any electricity either. Your plasma screen probably won't work. But just make sure you have those DVDs. Who knows? Okay. Okay, the AMASH project. More correctly pronounced, AMAC, in a northern accent. It's anomalous mind management abductees and contactees. I've been a member of Before for a very long time, with a lot of time for Before. I think they've done a hell of a lot of good work, but quite frankly, in the last 15 years, are full of crap. And they're abductees, they're like a sponge and absorbing the information, keeping it away from the public. Right. What we're doing is we're basically interviewing people, talking to people. We're running on thin air, if not that, me and Joanne. And we're getting some therapists and people coming along quietly in the background. People can contact those therapists. We do what we can. Some of them will come up and appear on camera. Others don't. And when we have the odd little meeting, we'll have basically everybody in front of the camera is going to be on the camera. If you're behind the camera, they just stay off scene. Some of them are very highly traumatized. Some of them are multiple personality issues. This is part of the mind control problem. It's very disturbing. So that's essentially mind control abductees. And one of the first people we interviewed was a lady called Kathy Morgan, and she has uncovered the issue with twins. And this is going back at least to the 1800s, research on twins. And we could talk about Nazis and Matt Todd, but we'll speed on. That's some of the witnesses appearing. There's a couple of familiar faces there. We're very grateful to Exopolitics, David Griffin, and David Hodrian, who helped start this whole thing up. That's lovely Joanne. You've seen me. The infamous Audrey. She's a great lady. That's our contact with the old abduction contactee group, which I've just forgotten. Which, again, you know, people have done as much as they can, but things are evolving. We've got to move on. We're trying to push the frontiers here. And therefore, we can't make conclusions. We can only just get the data and then talk about it later. Again, these are some of the witnesses which we interview. For instance, the Syrian connection, Marie Kayali, very nice girl, Irish, gets picked up with this guy, goes and marries this guy, you know, and all that sort of thing going on, very, very happy and wonderful, and just happens to be the son of the head of Syrian intelligence. Again, Syria is in on this. one of the other people which we've interviewed is a lady called Carol Rosen, who is a spokesperson, was a spokesperson for Wernher von Braun. Wernher von Braun is essentially saying that we've got a space defense treaty, we've got to be aware of all that. She mentions synthetic telepathy. Again, my research has brought us in with mind control and broadcasting, and that's Radio Caroline, which I mentioned before. Two of the people involved with this, like James Casbolt, this character here, was the guy involved with my pirate station in Ireland. Seek higher. Spontaneous. He was abducted 4 times. This is a 1 million watt pirate station on the Irish border. We're running for 9 years without a license, but we're still allowed to run. This is the transmission equipment. We had some of the, this is some of the radio equipment on the towers that we had. Again, we're not exactly keeping ourselves out of the way. So transmission systems, shadow people. Now this is one of the other things I'm speeding on very quickly here, is that a lot of the crop circle makers, these shadow entity life forms are present in almost a lot of these. There's a lot of this connecting this all together. Shadow entities. Being black doesn't make you bad. It just means you're not emitting photons, which we can see. Whilst at the BBC, it was quite interesting that somebody at the BBC should leave this book for me at Consciousness and Near-Death Experiences. Basically, if you are out of body and you're fully cognitive, you can see, feel. One thing which you must understand is when you're out of body, you can do things physically, okay? Very important. The basic crux to this is when you're out of body and you're seeing, feeling, doing everything else, it means your brain isn't doing it because you're physically removed from the brain. You're in some other place, which means that the mind is not necessarily in the physical brain. This is essentially discussing my colleague who was abducted 4 times. Again, we're running a massive 1 million watts into Belfast for 9 years with dance music, and we got the main man there abducted. This links in very quickly, very close to it is a place called St. Patrick's Chair and Well. This is an ancient monument, and this indicates that the ancient monuments were able to withstand whatever this alien force was that has taken control of humanity. This is Dave Marrow. Again, we've mentioned that really. Dave Marrow, very brave guy. Mentioned scuttlers in passing, and these huge octopus type things, life forms. Now the point about that is, if you look at a nerve cell looks like a dendritic monster thing, okay? A nerve cell is a point source into our domain, and it then connects with other things. So the shape of things might not necessarily determine whether they're good or bad. That means that we are dealing with a very complicated neural net of various types, from the internet to broadcasting, electricity supply, which is why they don't want you to generate your own electricity at home. They don't want you to get off grid, and they don't want you to involve, God forbid, zero-point energy technology. How am I doing for time? Anybody know Matthew Williams? Okay, well, Matthew Williams is a circle maker. And Matthew Williams gave me an interview some time ago where he describes in great detail that when they're actually making the crop circles, who the hell are those other guys? Black shadow entity beings involved with the people who fake the crop circles, which is why a lot of people in crop circle research, oh, don't go and talk to the circle makers. There's much more to this than meets the eye.
Coming towards you.
Coincidences.
What kind of interface could you think there's some kind of interface that could be explored to engage in these intelligences or whatever they are?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things, which hasn't been looked at by many of the researchers, is this man in black phenomena. I mean, I know it was brought forward that this Land Rover pulling up was supposed to be, some people used the term men in black, but I mean it was literally the circle makers getting out of a Land Rover and going into the field. But I mean what's actually happened is circle making teams have seen black figures in the circles whilst we've been making the circles.
You're talking about shadow people?
Yes. There's no definition, whereas you know you could see a normal person. These would just be shadowy ghost-like figures. And I mean, I've actually seen these things as what I would consider ghosts in houses that are supposed to be haunted, and on 2 occasions now. I've got a background in seeing this type of thing, but I know that other people who've been present in the formations have seen this as well. So,
what do these shadow beings do? Do they just observe, or
they're just observing? And when they've been observed, they've then disappeared. So it was interesting that on one night, somebody, when I was making a formation with friend Paul, we counted an extra team member in the field. And we thought this was interesting, that there was an extra person in there, so we got worried, thinking that we'd been infiltrated. But upon, sort of finding who was where and where all the people were, because, they're off in the distance, you have to work out who it is, then the extra person in that position had just disappeared. So, this has happened on a number of occasions that we've spotted this sort of stuff. And I've got an interesting photo which was taken by somebody of these black figures which were walking into a field, which it seems like the blackness of the negative is completely removed, whereas you can see people wearing black in the formation, but these black figures which are on the film and actually can be seen in subsequent shots walking through the field are completely black. It's like they're blacker than black should be in the photo because of the actual the sort of photographic.
What shape are they? Like humanoid?
Yes, definitely humanoid.
Would you think they're not human beings? Some kind of invisibility outfit? Maybe the military are having a bit of fun or something.
Well, I've never heard of any military invisibility thing. I mean, to me, it smacked of something too strange to be, normal, really. That you've got these things that happen, like the balls of light, these black sort of shadowy figures that are kind of, it just looks unusual. I wouldn't like to.
Do they invoke fear in any way?
I think there was concern more than anything that we had somebody that was in the field that wasn't part of our team that had managed to get close to us and was observing what we were doing. So it was more fear that we would have to maybe, grab this person and subdue them and find out who they were, or that we just turn around and walk the other way, and so they can't see who we were. But you've always got that in the back of your mind that they've already spotted you, so it's too late. And
the people who fake and make the crop circles, I know Richard D. Hall's done a fantastic series of programs. One of the programs was on crop circles, and he did a great deal of work on this. He's done a fantastic job. And one of them was the circle maker teams trained by MI5. So what the hell's going on? It's a bunch of people in the... Right. Now, we're going to try and do this quickly. Another interview bringing us up to speed, really fast up to speed. Okay, we've talked about out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences in the British military in 1957. This kind of psychic warfare has been completely militarized. Here we have a situation where the remote viewers working for the military, who, with conjunction with ETs and non-humans, with connected to computer networks and things, are actually going inside the soldiers in battle. So you have soldiers in battle with multiple injections of nanotechnology and things. I'll let Alara speak. Hopefully this will work.
My name's Alara. I was in the Marine Corps, and I was only in for a very brief period of time. I've always lived next to a military intelligence base. It was in Monterey, California, so I was also near Fort Ord and the Naval Postgraduate School. So I grew up around a lot of military people and was actually friends with a lot of them through most of my high school anyways. And when I was younger, I've always kind of been aware of things. I've always been sensitive. I've always been able to tell my parents like how they were feeling and things like that. And when I got into high school, I started looking more into it and started looking into things like remote viewing and astral projection and telepathy and things like that. It just became really super interesting for me because I was trying to find some sort of answer to what I could already do naturally. So I started remote viewing my friends for fun. If I'd get grounded, I'd go remote view my friends. And
What do you mean while you were sleeping?
Well, I'd go to bed at night, and then it would look like military people walking through my wall, and they'd pick me up, and I'd see my body laying there, and they go, "You need to come with us. We need to show you what it is you need to do." And a lot of my training happened in that way. So there's no I couldn't say.
What did they show you? What was involved there?
I would go to different countries.
Which ones?
I mostly Russia. Go sneak in, and I would kill people, like soldiers or whatever, guards. Go grab something like a laptop computer or a case that was inside this base, and we would sneak out again, and then I would step out of the person. I'd step back and look at them, make sure they were okay, and then the whole team would leave, and then I would just shift into another. I'd wake up and just be like, okay, cool, I'm out of my dream, and that's something else. And that would
So
happen.
you would occupy a person, do the actual deed,
Yeah.
and then step out of it.
And it was either, I don't know if I was actually in control, like controlling the person, because I'm pretty sure they were highly trained. They seemed like SEALs or some sort of like highly trained military person. I'm like, I'm not highly
What
trained.
gave you that impression?
Just the way they moved, like the way they carried themselves, the way they talked to each other. It was almost either I was watching what they were doing, so I had firsthand experience of what they were experiencing at that moment. So I don't know if it was like I was.
Okay, now this concept has been explored in various science fiction films. Have you seen Avatar? Anybody seen Avatar? Okay. The colors in Avatar are correct, and also the fact that, again, the physical body in a different world, the physical world, this is the problem. Our matter isn't always the same when you go to different worlds, right? It's like going swimming in a scuba diving outfit and going down to the Titanic. You can't do that. You've got to use some kind of different armament or physical environment to work in. So as that was explored in the film Avatar, the paralyzed individual who couldn't walk in this world was able to remote occupy a body in a different world. So what she's doing is, with the military that they're doing with Dave, which I've explained earlier, basically the super soldiers are designed to work in a different physical environment or different spatial environment where the matter is different. But the same person, you or the military expert here, can actually remotely occupy that person. That person's full of various nanotechnology devices, injections, so they can have you inside. And they think when she is telling you what to do, turn left, enemies on the left, but she can remote view, the enemies on the left, don't go there, go here. You think it's your own head saying that, but it isn't. This is Alara describing scuttlers, but we'll move on. The important thing is she's describing them. They're about the size of your hand, and they scuttle along like crabs. She's familiar with this, but we'll move on. Okay, one of the main things that we've got here in our Western society is we have not been told about the phenomena of the jinn. Now, many abductees, many experiences which, in fact, when I was on Edge Television with Sacha Christie, we were being accessed by the jinn. You had little small red spheres, you just blink in and out. What happens is people are seeing these shadow entities, which then disappear into a smoke and then just disappear into a point source. This is because our dimensional reality that which we are living in is occupying somebody else's space. And I'll let Rosemary Ellen, who's done a very great deal of work on this, to describe that.
I'm Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I'm an author, paranormal investigator, and researcher. I've been working full-time in the field since 1983, and I cover everything in the field because everything is interrelated. I do investigations of haunted places, especially negatively haunted places. I do entity contact experiences, spirit communications, mystical experiences. One of my special areas of inquiry is the entity contact experience. And I have found in the course of my research over the years that there are many interconnections between the different kinds of entities that we think we encounter. The jinn are actually quite powerful entities. They can shapeshift into any form. They live for thousands of years. They have families like we do in a social structure. They're like us in many ways. They're good, they're bad, they're indifferent. They come in different moral stripes. But there is a faction of them that's very resentful that the jinn lost their original homeland to us, and they want it back, and they're trying to take it back through guerrilla paranormal warfare. The shadow people seem to be very intelligent. They have this intense aura of incredible intelligence, far more than us. They are always in control of the situation when it comes to human beings. I found that shadow people experiences happen to all ages, both sexes. There was no particular grouping in age groups. It's not a kiddie phenomenon. It's not just the boogeyman in the closet for children, but adults have them as well. I'm not familiar with the octopus kinds of forms or the scuttler forms. However, in many haunted places where there is a jinn presence, there are small creatures that we call the little gray scurrying things.
Yeah.
And
sounds a description of a scuttler.
It sounds very similar. They usually take an animal form rather than a hand form. They're usually...
Well, I'm only saying the hand is roughly the size.
Oh, the size of it.
There's two the volume is loud enough. Basically, lots of legs. Okay? Okay? Don't see any around here. But black things with lots of legs. That's a very important work because the Western religious, I call it a mind virus, has completely not brought this information to us. And something which is so well organized globally as our Western form of religion, call it what denomination you want, which does not tell you about something which is so fundamental to our existence, tells me that they're part of it. Okay, so the shadow people are essentially and that kind of phenomena are in electric supply grids, all homes and industry attached via that. I've mentioned that. Essentially, this is something that Andrew Johnston has come across. This is a war on consciousness. If you access our consciousness, we know from physics and from various experimentation, perception creates the number crunches our reality. If you get control of that, you can directly engineer reality. Okay? And that's what 9/11 was about. Engineering reality. Okay, we support the Space Defense Treaty. That's one of the things which I've mentioned earlier. Matthew Todd, I'm not playing a lot of the clips because there's a couple I really want to get onto at the end here because I know I'm overrunning. So the point is, the Space Defense Weapons Treaty is something that Carol Rosen is desperately trying to get signed at the United Nations, but it's too late. Okay, the Amash Project, we are holding a conference on Friday the 31st to the Sunday the 2nd. We're going to have lots of people who have direct experiences talking to people. We're trying to bring this up to the medical side of things and scientific side of things and bring this up to a higher level. We are greatly honored to be allowed by the John Mack Institute to have the John Mack Memorial Lecture. And this is going to be delivered by Veronica Keane. Veronica, anybody know who John Mack is? Okay, Harvard University psychiatry professor who wrote on alien, he broke the mold. He brought the whole alien abduction thing to the high level of academia. And he died in North London, and Veronica Keane was the person who identified him. And there's another story there, but we're tremendously honored to be able to bring scientific and medical academia, trying to bring this into this subject to get it properly discussed. And we know that we got a problem with the medical institutions on this because there's a really serious war going on. Okay, the Amash Conference, Nottingham, Britannia Hotel, August 31st. And that's that. Okay. Now, the last witness that we have just interviewed would scare the living daylights out of you. I don't want to spread fear. I want to give solutions. But until we
actually find out what's going on, we really got to bloody wake up and smell the whatever. The MOD is trying to help, it seems, the whole alien thing. They've got a big problem on their hands. They've screwed up too long and let too much disinformation get out. And I hope that none of the stuff I'm giving out is disinformation, which is why I'm saying allegedly, possibly. Don't make any conclusions, just pay attention. Right, people who've got certain blood groups are being taken out. People who've got certain psychic abilities to communicate off our world outside are being targeted. In other words, we are being shut down. It seems that we're essentially being shut down so that we ultimately will become a completely controllable prison planet species. Slowly. Oh. Right, we'll see if this works. John Shelton, interviewed by Joanne Summerscales.
I say I got back in about 8:30 p.m. that evening into my bungalow.
He's describing his abduction.
About 11:30 I collapsed on the settee. I was fully clothed, fully zipped up, absolutely normal. And about 3.5 days later I came to.
How did you feel, John? I mean,
I felt extremely ill. I was vomiting.
Oh, really?
I was covered in a gelatinous type of material with a stink of ozone in the atmosphere and sulphur.
And that was
really, really heavily sulphurous, ozony type smell.
You were also saying that was also over your cat?
Yes, my cat was covered in the same gelatinous type material as well.
Right.
And about 3 days after that I was sectioned. I was taken to a hospital. Well, actually I wasn't sectioned initially, but I was taken to a psychiatric unit in Derby.
Right. And under what conditions? What was the cause? Do you think? I mean, the breakdown. Did they cite a particular?
Well,
process?
they said I had a severe reaction to stress.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I was appallingly treated from the word go. Very, very badly treated.
In what respect? I mean, they didn't treat you sympathetically, or
no. They didn't believe anything I said. That appears to be normal with psychiatry, that they don't believe anything you say about anything in particular.
Were you telling them about the UFO incident?
Not in particular, no.
Right.
I held back on that, to be honest. And I was told they had my name on a list of people to pick up and section.
Wow.
In fact, this is how they do indeed work, with lists of names.
They go around and collect people in like a paddy wagon.
Basically, they were doing that, yes.
People who assaulted you were allegedly psychiatric nurses, or
Yes, the MOD came to see me, in fact, and confirmed that my former girlfriend had been complaining to the mental health people. It was indicated to me if I tried to escape I'd be harmed. They threatened me with a Walther P38 9mm semi-automatic pistol.
Who?
They had in the
one
top
of the
drawer.
nurses?
One of the nurses, indeed so.
Okay. These male nurses?
I made an emergency... Male nurses, yes. I made an emergency call to the Ministry of Defence for assistance. They turned up after I'd been there about a week or so. And they tried to secure me into their possession.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by nurses, threatened with a handgun again, by nursing staff.
Where were the MOD people or reps?
There were only 2 soldiers and an
Right.
old retired major who had come an RO2, retired officer grade 2. The soldiers were threatened with a handgun by a nurse.
So, soldiers, nurses, guns, mental hospital, Ministry of Defence at war with the National Health Service, because the National Health Service is saying if you have an alien abduction or any kind of a strange event like this, you are mad. You will be sectioned and you will be taken to a mental hospital. Your blood group will be analysed. If you are a particular blood group and type, there will be certain organs removed from your person. There will be certain parts of your body will be mutilated. And he's lucky. Sometimes they just rip the offending item off and leave you dying, because they wish to reduce certain blood group levels of the population to 0, so that you then only have a certain other type of blood group, and that type of blood group can be is malleable and controllable. Now, there are some other features which John has described, which is a sort of man thing, okay? It's a man type thing that men talk about. But we won't go there. But it's crucial because it seems that there are a large number of human-type people in the population who've got bits which others don't have, which means that not all of us are what we seem to be. And we leave it at that. Bit delicate. This is when we actually start getting a bit personal with some researchers. This is the color coding the MOD has for certain security levels. It will mention 2 people's names, if you can hear it.
Hadn't they, well, we'd already sort of established that you'd been doing some remote viewing work for them, or was that for another body?
That was not specifically for intelligence at all.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not correct.
Right, okay.
That was at a later date. That was purely for MOD's own internal security department.
Okay, okay.
The MOD has its own version of MI5.
Basically, Sasha Christie and Andrew Johnston are black level
department.
Yeah.
That has a budget to be able to investigate anomalous phenomena.
Describe the multiple colour levels of security.
Particularly these things that come up in the East Midlands through traders and whatever.
Okay.
They regard the National Health Service's argument as a complete joke. They've obviously picked on a perfectly innocent guy who was just doing some research work for the MOD. I find the whole attitude of the NHS to be absolutely imbecilic in nature.
This is the last bit. Anybody heard of Area 51? Okay. Anybody seen any movies, like science fiction things involving aliens and the X-Files? No? Okay. Right. Take one. Area 51, the number is important. It's not just the number of areas. It's a place the size of Wales. Area 51 is one section in a place the size of Wales in the Groom Lake desert region near Las Vegas in the northern Nevada. It's where the Americans test their bombs, their nice, trendy, secret space planes and did I say space plane? Aircraft. And everybody's got to test their kit, have do their stuff, and if you're going to light off the odd nuclear bomb, it's always better to have as few people there as possible. I had a dear colleague, Bill Newhouse, who's featured in Bases 2, who describes how they reverse engineered the flying disc technology. And this is what we're going to see for the first time, is the use of flying disc technology, alien reverse engineered flying disc technology, in 1989, flying out of the Groom Lake secret test facility, and it was broken to the world by a guy called John Lear and a buddy of his called Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar is a young man, he's a physicist who managed to get himself into the secret test facility, and this is going to be too quiet, so I don't know, maybe we'll, if I switch my mic off, maybe you could boost the audio, because I'm howl rounding as soon as we do that. So this is the very first time, if anybody's seen the film Independence Day or the X-Files or those kind of things, they mention the secret or projects, the Stargate Atlantis, those kind of series of programs, they'll mention Area 51. This is where it came into the public domain. But the point is, this is the raw video shot by John Lear's camera in the desert, in pitch darkness, where you see the flying disc. It'll be about the size of a gnat here, flying around. This is a flying disc, which is meant to be a reverse-engineered alien device, okay? Again, who's managing our reality? Who's managing the news, right? Who's managing this? So, because a lot of people haven't heard of John Lear, I've got a little bit of just explanation to start. And this is when the flying discs are first brought, the man-made, or the alien reproduction vehicles, as some of them are called, was brought into the public consciousness. This is courtesy of John Lear, and I'm very grateful for that.
It was December 6th, 1988. He comes in, sits down there. It's in the evening. He said, I saw a disc today. I said, what? He said, I saw a disc. I said, theirs or ours? He said, theirs. I said, you went to Groom Lake? He said, yeah. And I said, well, what are you coming here for? Why don't you work there a couple months? And then tell us, because they obviously followed you here. They're going to tell, you know, that you came right up here. He said, you know, the reason I'm doing this is I've seen you take so much crap over the last 5 or 6 months talking about this that I saw it, I felt it, I touched it, I was in it, and I just wanted to tell, you know, it's real. So then from then on, things went bizarre. He continued to work up there, and by continued to work, I think he only went up there about 6 or 7 times.
You want it louder?
He told us when he get back what he learned up there, and then on the 21st of March of 1989, he said they're going to do a test flight tomorrow night. You want to go see? And I said, yeah, how? And he said, well, there's a road on the northeast of Groom Lake we can go down. And I said, yeah, I know that one. And so the next night was March 22nd, and that was the one you've seen here many times, I'm sure. We got there about 8:45, stopped went up in my motorhome, and I got out and set up that telescope right there. And we saw it come up behind the mountains, and Gene or Bob said, look, there it is. All the time we had managed to leave the video camera on the bumper of the motorhome. And I got that set up. It flew around for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then it stopped, and it was settling down behind the mountains that were between us and Groom Lake. And that's when I got that focused in on a 8-inch telescope. It's very difficult to sight something and track it manually.
The crucial thing here is Bob Lazar's a physicist. He's working in the test site, but he wants his name and voice on the tape.
It was a flying saucer oriented about 35 to 40 degrees to the horizon. It was radiating
this is a man-made alien reproduction flying saucer at Area 51.
Well, I saw it too. He was he was telling us it was a planet. We're watching it real fast and up in the air.
No, but the funny thing is he's got an 8-inch telescope on the thing. Here, Gene, take a look. And he gets it. I mean, I wasn't even going to look at it so you could see it.
Why didn't you want to see it, Bob?
Well, I just wanted you to have a look first.
Notice how it's blinking.
That's too funny. That's too funny. Hey, what's that light over there?
It's a truck on the highway.
Because we're getting.
This is a historical day, John.
It is?
You saw a disc.
I know, but it doesn't make me any happier.
Why?
This is
You've never seen one. You complain about it all the time.
I didn't care. I knew they existed.
Yeah, but you saw one. Didn't you say if you could just see one?
I did. He is happy. This is
as happy as he did.
He orgasmed and we didn't even know.
Gray comes up and shakes his hand, and all he can do is argue that I knew you guys
goes,
were here.
Look, oh, you were just sent out here to disinform me.
Go for
get
it.
A number and give us a side view too.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Good evening. This is John Lear, and today is March 22nd, 1989. We're standing just about 8 miles due east of Groom Lake, Nevada, the super government secret test site. And just a few minutes ago, we saw one of the government extraterrestrial UFOs fly over there. We all watched it for about 7 or 8 minutes. Right here I have my Celestron scope. It's 8 inches. And I had it focused in for about 15 seconds and saw for myself that in fact it was a disc. We're going to stay here for another couple hours here to see if we can show you folks an actual extraterrestrial flying saucer being flown by the government. So if you just stand by, and we'll be looking over that mountain, which is where they are. They also come over here, which is over at Bald Mountain. There's some lights over there which you can't see, but they are a number of trucks. We don't know whether they're looking down here or what they're doing up there, but we managed to get in here. We're standing on public land. It's completely legal where we are. And if you'd like to come here later in the show, we'll tell you exactly how to get here.
Well, you can mention who's with you, John.
We have Bob Lazar, and we have Jackie Lazar, Bob's wife, and we have Gene Huff. And this mission was organized tonight by Bob Lazar, who is a theoretical physicist who works at Groom Lake.
And is also a dead man at this point. We're having this on film.
Yeah, right. I'm happy.
You want your name on there that you're yeah. We're out here with the late Bob Lazar.
The significance of this is overwhelming. This is the first time that a physicist who's working at Area 51, or the secret test facility, along with people like Teller, the guy who made the atom bomb and other sort of things like that, is showing you a flying saucer, for Christ's sake. It's a flying saucer flying on the damn screen. Now, I was out there myself at the 3rd International UFO Conference. I had my camera pointed at the mountain. I could see the damn flying saucer. I was videotaping it, and some hooligan behind me said, "You'll put the camera down now." As soon as I took the camera down, the damn thing flew up, hovered for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then gone. Just like gone like that. Faster than I could move my arm from a dead stop. Man-made technology Germans had, possibly 1945. Yet this is managed information. Now the point about why John Lear's miserable as hell, yeah, well, you've just seen a flying saucer, because John was actually responsible for releasing some of the information on a 2-inch thick ring file called Matrix 1 and Matrix 2. Anybody heard of those? Val Valerian? Right. Big, thick books that size, Dulce base, alien stuff. Lots and lots of pictures of press cuttings and stuff of mind-controlled mind things going back 1989. You've got to get yourselves educated, guys, okay? Start waking up. This is shit's hitting the fan time. Okay, ultimately, all this is available on YouTube on my Megawatts 106 site. The Amash project, we have our individual clips also in short form on the Amash on YouTube. If you're an alien abductee, mind control victim, or whatever it is, you can leave a message on that number. Joanne is working day in, day out on this with other colleagues. My website, which is sort of there and sometimes isn't, is undergroundvideouk.com. Sometimes the Amash site gets a bit compromised, and you can find it usually at alienabductionuk.com. Amash. And there will be DVDs. I've got some DVDs at the back. Essentially, the information is being managed. It involves our genetics. Our species is under attack at a genetic level. The Americans got the Americans and the Russians got the German rocket scientists. We got the German genetic and mind control specialists. It affects our broadcasting system. It affects our electrical supply system in a non-real domain. The mathematics is in the physics. Maxwell's equations going back to the end of the previous century has been gerrymandered so that only the sort of stuff that we can feel, the physics, this stuff here, can be used as a mechanism for reality management. We can actually do reality management. There are projection technologies which are available which can project three-dimensional images of people on stage. Fake alien projected false reality. That's one of the things Werner von Braun was talking about in his final years, is a fake alien. I mean, Dr. Stephen Greer, who I have a lot of respect for, but they've got to him, in my opinion. In other words, we've got to be very careful exactly what we think is real. And we've got to educate ourselves. They're attacking us at a consciousness level through our media systems, and the Murdoch situation that's going on right now, I'm acutely involved with at an early stage. Look at what's going on there in Parliament. we have faced possibly, Don Irwin is constantly warning that we are in imminent danger of a fake World War III event happening in London during the Olympics. Now, the fact we know about that means it's distraction. It's all over the internet. So, wake up and smell the coffee, guys. That's all I've got.